Queenstown now is vastly different from the one I grew up in, because the Queenstown I grew up in was not even a tourist centre. New Zealanders used to come here for holidays, and I can remember people coming from Dunedin and Invercargill and swimming in the lake and being in the camping ground, but that wasn't even a ski resort when I grew up here.
The actual basis of Queenstown is just the same. We've always had international people come to Queenstown. We've had the skiers in the winter. We've had mainly New Zealanders come for the summer holidays. It's always been a very sort of interesting place to grow up in. We had opportunities to do huge things, and I imagine the kids that grow up here still do, going skiing and skating and all different activities on the lake. In fact, the things they do now is amazing. They go cross-country biking on their bikes and doing all sorts of things that we didn't actually think about doing. But I guess, it's just some new things to do. Unfortunately, in the 50 years, I suppose I can remember, it has developed extensively, as probably lots of other places do, but it just takes away that childhood essence of your memories, and it has changed.
Obviously, it's much more developed, and I don't particularly like it. I never particularly liked Queenstown as a town. I just like where it is, and I don't think that's changed. I think it's still beautiful.
Unbelievable, really, to what it's changed to from when I came here to live as a young man and be married and live with Paula in several houses. But the town itself has grown and grown and grown. We've come back quite often to enjoy the place again, and every time we come back it's bigger and bigger. And the airport where I worked originally was a little small light aircraft airport. Believe it or not, now has jets that fly directly to Australia, which to me is just mind-blowing.
And I can remember sitting on the veranda of Mum and Dad's house looking over the lake thinking, wow.
I didn't like Queenstown. I didn't want to grow up here for the rest of my life, and I can remember as a child sitting on the side of the road at Frankton and looking at all the cars going past and thinking, where do they come from? Where are they going to? I want to go there too. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in Queenstown.
Yes, it's good to come back to. I have been alarmed every time I've come back just how cold it is. I don't think I could live in the cold so much now, but it's been a really special place to grow up. Yeah, and it's just developing, that's all.
And there were old people who lived here, that, like Mrs. Taylor, who must have been, well, she seemed ancient to me, but she was probably only in her 60s, and Miss Speeden and people like that. And that kind of sense of community just isn't here anymore, because I think those people have all moved out to Frankton or Wanaka or somewhere.
The good thing about Queenstown is when you come back, you can go past the town and drive up the road a bit, like we've done on this trip to go to Moke Lake, and it's still the same place. You get away from the town and you're returning to the landscape and the feelings you had when you were young, the freedom it lets you have, and sort of draws you into the hills. But as soon as you come back into the town, you're back into a really busy tourist town, and it's not that pleasant, and it's not the part of Queenstown I enjoy, but to be able to get away into the hills is wonderful.
I've always had a special, like Paula always had a special feeling for the mountains, which is why I think we both like Taupo so much, but yeah, I don't have any desire to come back and live here.
I always liked the cosmopolitan side of Queenstown, that there were always people from different cultures here, and I think for what was a very English white bread sort of country for the rest of New Zealand. We were very lucky in Queenstown that we were exposed to different cultures early, and I'm sure my love of nice food comes from that as well. And I have to say, when I've come back, although they've knocked a lot of the old stuff down and it's very overdeveloped, I'm really pleased to see that they've done things to actually improve parts of it. Like the gardens now just look beautiful, and they were kind of a bit run down when I left in 1980. And when you come down from the gardens and you come down onto the waterfront and go towards the wharf, that there was a kind of a grotty little creek that used to smell like sewage, and now it's got a beautiful bridge over it, and there's a monument there and a water wheel and some statues and things, and what we used to call the rowing sheds, but apparently was the bathhouse, has been restored, and it's just beautiful. So there's things like that they've done that I really like, but yeah, I can't say I like the town especially, just where it is.
The Earnslaw means a lot to me. I first went on it, I think, in around about 1960, when my family were living in Te Anau, and we came over here for a holiday as a family group. And we went on the Earnslaw from Queenstown to Glenorchy, and then on to the Rootburn on the bus trip, which runs right up to the Rootburn Valley, and was an old bomby old bus. And the driver got off and made everyone a cup of tea, and hopped back on the bus and came back to Elfin Bay, climbed back on the Earnslaw and returned to Queenstown.
I suppose the Earnslaw to me has always been part of Queenstown. It's sort of an iconic thing, the ship going down the lake with the smoke steaming behind it, with the huge mountains behind it. The Earnslaw has always been here, so it's like part of Queenstown. I don't remember many times going on the Earnslaw. I do remember going to Queenstown when we were really young, but I can remember it being used more as a workhorse than a tourist vehicle. Pens of sheep coming on it and then being taken off at the wharf at the other end, trucks being lifted on and off it, cattle and crates.
Well, it was really part of everyday life living in Queenstown, and I can remember on the cold winter's day, great clouds of smoke blowing over the whole town where everybody lived, and it had a really regular sort of routine for, it used to be a lot more extensive work sort of ship in those younger days, taking all the supplies up to the high country stations, and it had a very distinctive steam engine toot that you'd hear right through the town.
It's just kind of always been here and just part of life in Queenstown.
I had a really memorable time once when I had a school friend who lived at the head of the lake, and she came down with her family to be schooled in Queenstown, but their family still owned land in Glenorchy, and in those days the only way to Glenorchy was to go on the Earnslaw. And my friend's mother used to pack her family up with the stores they needed, and they would go back to it was their home really, for the school holidays. And one year I was invited, and it was really special. And I've really remembered it all my life, just how isolated it was and just how essential the Earnslaw was to keep all these isolated country people and the high distant stations sort of in stores. I can remember it bringing sheep back to be sold at market, and I can remember vehicles being lifted on it to be taken up to Glenorchy and places like that.
I was also part of the era where it was a workhorse, and you know the sheep were loaded on the front and the sheep poo used to go rolling under your feet, and I remember wool bales being loaded on and the grotty old railway sheds where it was stored, and all the old men, well they seemed old to me, that worked on it. But I also remember it being quite a prime job for the young guys to actually leave school and go and shovel coal in the Earnslaw, which is quite amusing having teenagers now myself.
I can remember the Earnslaw being in the winter time up on the slip and thinking how big it was. Up on the hoist with all the red and the huge propeller, it seemed to me, huge propeller at the back of it and the huge rudder.
Unbeknown to me that I didn't know I was going to come here ultimately and live and meet my wife in Queenstown. But as fate happened, I did. And came back to work in Queenstown as a young man and met Paula. And we used to go out in the Earnslaw before we had children, when we had children. And the Earnslaw also used to go past our house when we lived in Kelvin Heights, and especially in the evening it was really special. In the summer it was hot and we'd have our bedroom doors open looking over the Frankton Arm, and the Earnslaw would come along and we'd hear the chug 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 of the steam engines, and then as it slowly went past we'd hear the piano on the rear deck playing away and people singing, and it would just fade away in the distance.
I can remember having like area events where there would be heaps amount of people all clambered on the Earnslaw, and we'd go across to perhaps the Greenstone or even Glenorchy once. I think actually a lot of Queenstown people used to go to the Glenorchy races on the Earnslaw, and it was really a special event.
And I really remember how everyone in town used to set their clocks by the toot. Was it 8 o'clock in the morning? Used to go?
It was a lunchtime one.
Yeah, like 12 o'clock maybe it was, and people used to set their clock by it. And I remember once when I was in very early high school and tourists were starting to come to Queenstown, and I was walking with my friend down Ballarat Street before it was a mall even, and there were 2 American tourists and they were powering the old Earnslaw up, shoveling the coal on, and one of them turned to the other and said, "This must be what hell smells like." I've never forgotten it. But now I think, look, when I'm cremated, I'm sure the smell of carbon and sulphur and coal will come out of my bones, because it must be part of what I'm made of. I breathe so much of it.
And I can also remember that it was even though it was a working ship, it was quite glamorous down below, and it had this room called the Ladies' Saloon. And it was sort of upholstered, the benches and that, in velvet, and another memory I have is the warmth from the steam engines and sitting near the tunnel, the big tunnel on the Earnslaw, keeping warm. And I can also remember how rough it used to get on the lake, and it was quite unsettling sometimes. And I can remember coming back to Queenstown after we had left and going out on the Earnslaw, being utterly amazed, because this big working ship had been transformed into a pure tourist machine. There was a band with a grand piano playing on the background, and people used to be handed out song books, and everybody used to sing these really old-fashioned songs like "Oh, It's a Long Way to Tipperary," and all these other things, and the people used to play the piano madly, and they all used to sing along. And they used to take people across to Walter Peak Station, and when they got over there they used to go for a high country look at shearing sheep and stuff like that, and then they'd all come back to Queenstown. But the thing that used to amaze me is there would be people that were sound asleep on the Earnslaw. And I sort of thought about this, why would they be going to sleep? And I realised that, you know, they were tourists doing 20 countries in 10 days. They didn't even know where they were, and it was nice and warm, and there was this rhythm on the Earnslaw, and they just went to sleep.
Down there in the engine room are the original engines and boilers as supplied and installed on the ship back in 1912. Twin triple expansion, double A big steam engines, rated at about 250 horsepower each, turning over at a very leisurely 140 RPM. They give us this nice cruising speed of about 12 knots. Maintaining that 12 knots though, those hard-working stokers down there have to hand load the coal into the boilers with a big shovel at the rate of 1 tonne of coal per hour when we're steaming along, which is no mean feat. When the Earnslaw was launched in 1912, which is the same year they launched the Titanic, she was the most modern, up-to-date, largest vessel ever seen here on Lake Wakatipu, boasting luxurious features such as an exclusive ladies' saloon on the lower deck and a gentleman's bar in the forecastle, plus the grand sum of £20,000. The Earnslaw still travels a distance each year here on Lake Wakatipu about equal to a circumnavigation of the world. So for 100 years today, the Earnslaw is operated here on Lake Wakatipu, certainly earned her title of Lady of the Lake.
And I do remember when the road to Glenorchy was opened and it was at risk of being turned into scrap, and there was really quite a movement in the community to keep it as a ship and turn it into a tourist attraction. And I think we're all just so lucky that those people won and the scrap merchants didn't.
So when I went in on the Earnslaw the other day, I was absolutely fascinated to look down into the hold and see all the brass bits down there and the wheels and the steam. And I guess in the age of computers we forget about mechanical things like pistons and what have you that drive fabulous old machinery. And the other thing is they don't make stuff like that anymore.
And I also remember when it used to go round the Frankton Arm at night, and I'd completely forgotten that until Paula had said it. And sometimes it used to go past at lunchtime, and the captain at the time was Mr. Bradshaw, I forget his first name, and Mum and Dad were quite good friends with them, and Mum used to go out on the veranda and wave a tea towel, and they'd toot the whistle as they went past the house.
And it's been wonderful to come back for its anniversary, go for our Frankton trip. It brought back lots of special memories because it really is quite unique.
So it was really good to be able to come back for the 100th anniversary and do the same trip in the Frankton Arm as we'd done on previous times.
Yeah. I'm just really glad to see her going, and it was a great thing to go on it on the 100th day at first set sail.
Earnslaw has always been here.
Must have had a seal on it.
Oh, I've just remembered that's the stuff there. That stuff
Not
gets
too
the
bad.
skin on it pretty quick, mate.
Does it? Yeah. That's all right there, though. It won't matter if it gets the skin there. I'll have to go and get something to mop it up with, Quinn.
Yep.
So where's my hole there? Down
Got your right hand down a bit.
there. Yeah, it's going to squeeze out, Quinn, all that goo.
Yeah, that's
Too
what
much
we
goo.
want. That's what
Right,
we want.
we need something.
That'll chop off, mate.
Will it?
Yeah. Okay. Where's our sticks?
I'm just going to have to wipe that glue off of it, Quinn. See, it's all bulging out here.
That'll be all right, mate.
But I've got to push it in yet. Look at that. There we go.
I'd just like to welcome the family and the descendants of Fred and Marge Scott, who are long-time residents of Queenstown, lived here for 26 years, had 2 businesses here, and Dad was a long-time resident of the electricity department, and Mum was a long-time employer at the hospital. They had 3 children here as well, and although they're not buried here, they are interred, and the ashes are scattered in Auckland, and their son Ross, who's mentioned on the plaque here, his ashes are also interred in Auckland. So it'd be nice if we could all just have a few words about our memories of the time here, and then we'll just have a nice little, just leave the ceremony as that, and then just perhaps we'll go out and have lunch and go on and enjoy this lovely place. So the memory I guess I'd like to just talk about very briefly, since I'm the oldest one, is the very first day we actually came to Queenstown, and I was 7 years old, and I can actually remember parts of that. We were living in a caravan then, and Mum and Dad came here on holiday. Paula tells me it was Easter. I don't actually remember that, but that probably was the case. And I can remember driving in, the 2 of us in their big caravan that we'd been living in for a number of years by then, driving along the Frankton Road, and Dad was driving the caravan, and I can remember him saying, "Where the hell does this place start?" Because the road twisty windy, and it just went through trees and not much else. And then we came round the corner by where the library is, the big stone library with the big Wallentonia trees, and went out to go over the little hump bridge that's no longer there, and there were power lines across it, and of course the caravan couldn't get over, so it was a big introduction. Some of the locals came running out with a broom and lifted the lines up so we could get underneath that, and then we came up here to the camp, and that was my memories of coming to Queenstown. So probably quite significant to talk about the first day they arrived here, and now this is going to be like the close of all that. So I'll just hand over to Paula, being the next oldest, and then other members of the family like Fiona and grandchildren, great-grandchildren might want to have to say something, and visitors from Australia.
I'd also like to say I'm very sorry that Timmy's not here. But never mind, it just didn't happen, so she's with us here in thought. Having this plaque made here has been very important to me, because when I got into family history, I used to go and look at these places down in Tasmania where people had been that were ancestors, and it always concerned me that Mum and Dad, Ross has had a plaque in Auckland, but Mum and Dad, we hadn't got organised to do that, and whenever we got organised to do that, something sort of came up. And even though it seems simple today, it's been a real journey to get this finished. So I'd like to thank everybody, Fiona for getting it made, and Quinn and Mike putting it up. And I think it just looks really wonderful. And if my memory serves me correctly, I had great dramas about where I thought they should go, because I don't think this rock has always been here. And even though I think there's 30,000 residents that live in Queenstown now, this still is the only cemetery. There's a new one planned out at Frankton. There is a cemetery at Frankton, and when I came here a few years ago, I thought, is this a good place? And they had up in the trees here is a flying fox, and while I was standing here umming and ahhing, there was people going whee all the way down the hill, and I thought, well, maybe that's not really appropriate, but it is. So I think it looks really wonderful there. So thank you for everybody to helping us get it there. And I hope Mum and Dad and Ross would be very happy with it. They had really sort of interesting and colourful lives, and I think they must have spent the majority of their marriage here. They left here to go right up north to Waiheke Island when they had sold their business and retired, and Dad had a few years there before he died, and then Mum went on to have another life, but that's another story. So we're going to remember them here together with Ross. So I'd also like to say I think I'll remember this holiday for the rest of my life, and let's enjoy the time we've got together. That's all I'd like to say.
How good it is to actually have somewhere to mark our parents and our brother, and it's how good it is to have so many members of the family here with us. I too miss Teeny, and I'd really like for my son to have been here as well, but that we have so many of such a tiny family with us is just brilliant. It would have been really great if Andy could have got here too, because then we'd have had the whole box and dice, but it's how it is. I don't really have one single memory. Well, I do actually have one single memory of Queenstown, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but this has always been home for me, and I left in 1980 after I'd helped Mum and Dad pack their house up in between when Ross died and we were waiting for his funeral. It was a terrible time, and I didn't come back until I was 50. So I was 22 then. I didn't come back for 28 years, and I came back for a school reunion of all the girls in my class who turned 50, and they'd gone to a lot of trouble to hunt me down and make sure I was going to be here. So I got off the plane, and I think I've told Andrew this, the air smelt right to me, and the sun on my skin, and the light and the water. And I thought, this is my home. So, blah, blah, blah. I've actually bought somewhere here because I would like to come and live back here. And I kind of feel today that a bit of a circle has been completed. So, I'm very happy about that. I guess one memory that I would like to share with you all, because Teeny isn't here, but she'd probably remember it as well. We were out on the boat that Dad built, and it was a beautiful, beautiful summer's day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and there was just a little bit of snow around the top of the mountains, and we were going out towards Walter Peak on the boat, and Teeny and Ross and I were sitting up the front of the boat with our legs dangling over the front, leaning like that, looking into the water, and the water was so deep and clear and blue, and it was just a beautiful day. So that's, I guess, my memory of Queenstown, and thanks everyone for being here.
Scott family, thank you for letting me have a talk at Fred and Marge's memorial service. I'm the only in-law that actually lived in Queenstown with one of the Scott daughters. A little bit of history of how I got here. I got moved from Invercargill in 1965 and came up to Queenstown to work, because the firm I worked for combined with the airport firm in Queenstown Airport, and I lived in an old house across the other side of the hill here, and probably in about 1966 I met Paula at the ice skating rink, which is very significant in the Queenstown Gardens for us, and from then on met up with Paula's family as time went on. 1967 Paula and I got married and lived at Frankton, at the other end of the flat where Paula's mum and dad lived, and met all the family. Fiona was just a little dot in those days, so it's a fair while ago, but my memories of Queenstown with the Scots was going for picnics, but it's the same as Fiona really, is going out on the boat and having trips out onto the lake and on beautiful calm days, just chugging along in the boat and stopping up on a beach and getting the Primus going, or the thermette, having a cup of tea, and just enjoying the lake really. And Fred did a really good job of rebuilding a boat that we used to go out on called the Moomba, and in 1977 Paula and I moved north to Palmerston North. Left this lovely place. But one thing I thought about with what Fiona said, and that was really significant, is one particular time Paula and I flew in here, as we have done many times. It was a beautiful day. It was just a perfect day, as Queenstown has so many. And the aeroplane pulled up, not like they do now, but it pulled up and the door opened and Paula got to the top of the stairs of the plane and we're looking straight at the Remarkables. It was a crystal clear day and it just brought Paula to tears. It was just an incredible day. And it was a lovely place to spend time with Paula and her family. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for inviting us here at this reunion and memorial ceremony for your dad, your mum and your brother. We didn't know them. We get to know a little bit about them through talking with you, but as a person, we never met them, so which I'm sorry to say, our loss. But just your interest in your family history has brought us together, because those inquiries through Mum, and that was only by chance that the word got through to her, and we knew yous existed, because we knew nothing of yous, this side of the ditch, as we say. But they're very appreciative of inviting us, and I'm just glad we can share this day with you. It's a sad day for yous, and it's a sad day for us too, because your loss kind of reflects on all of us, I think. So that's all I like to say, and just say thank you all.
Here we are, Queenstown waterfront. Is it Labour Day? Yeah, okay, well I'm labouring. Right. The old hometown looked the same as I stepped down from the tree, and there to meet me was my mama and my papa. Down the lane I look, and there comes Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they all come to meet me, arms reaching, smiling sweetly. Well, it's good to touch the green, green grass of home. The old house is still standing, though the paint is cracked and dry, and there's that old oak tree that I used to play on. Down the road I look, and there comes Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'd all come to meet me, arms reaching, smiling sweetly. Well, it's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Then I'd awake and look around me at the four gray walls that surround me, and then I realized I was only dreaming. For there's a God Oh, come see me, arms reaching, smiling sweetly, when it's good to touch the green, green grass of home.